And I'd also like to thank the volunteers who have worked so hard to make tonight possible. If you look around, you will see our volunteers in yellow P.E.A.C.E shirts, even some not in yellow P.E.A.C.E shirts. Let's give them a round of applause for their hard work. My name is Jill Hansen, and I am a parishioner at St. Peter Catholic Church in Jupiter. I serve as P.E.A.C.E's co-president alongside Father John DeMello. Welcome to the 2024 Community Problems Assembly. Whether this is your first P.E.A.C.E event or your 100th, we are glad you are here. Over the last 2 months, we've held 60 house meetings. At those house meetings, over 450 people came together to participate in sacred conversations and answered the call to do justice. Tonight, we gather in celebration of our listening process and to affirm our commitment to making our world a better place. We have an exciting evening ahead of us. Tonight, you will hear from candidates running for County Commission in Districts 3, 5, and 7. You will also hear about our police community relations and mental health campaigns. We'll end tonight with an opportunity to get involved in the research process. Please join me now in saying the Peace opening prayer, which is on page 2 of your agenda packet. O God, who has given us power we seldom use, and possibilities we all too readily relinquish, give us the ability to see how much better we might be than we are, and the resolve to act on that vision together with love, peace, and commitment to make our world a better place. Amen. Now I would like to invite Reverend Jason Fairbanks to give tonight's reflection.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Tabernacle and Reverend Kisner, for sharing your space with us tonight. We have the opportunity always to be proclaiming the good news of God's justice, but for a preacher, it's a treat to be able to do that in a place where it's been done for the past over 130 years. So thank you for that in your ministry, in your witness. A reading from the Hebrew scripture Nehemiah 5, 1 through 12. Now it happened that the common folk, both women and men, raised a hue and cry against their Jewish sisters and brothers. Some said, "We, our daughters and sons, are so numerous that we must have grain in order to stay alive." Others said, "We're mortgaging our fields, vineyards, and homes to buy enough grain during this famine." Still others complained that they had to borrow money against their fields and vineyards to pay the ruler's tax. "But our needs are the same as anyone's," they complained. "Our children are as good as yours, yet we must sell our daughters and sons into slavery. Some of our daughters have already been sold into prostitution, but we can do nothing about it. Our fields and our vineyards are owned by others." I was enraged when I heard these complaints and stories. After some thought, I approached the officials and said, "I charge you with exacting usurious interest rates to your own kin." Then I called together an assembly to deal with them, saying, "We have done everything we can to bring our sisters and brothers who were sold into slavery in foreign lands. Yet now you are now selling your own flesh and blood, who must now be bought back by us." They were silent and had nothing to say. I continued, "It is wrong for you to do this. You should be living in respect of God's ways so that you are above reproach in the eyes of the nations of our enemies. My kin and I, the workers under me, are lending these people money and grain. Stop this usury immediately. Return their fields, their vineyards, their olive groves, and their houses. as well as all the usurious profits you've made, whether in money, in grain, in wine, or in olive oil, and do it today." "We will give them back," they promised, "and we will exact nothing more. We will obey your word." Then after summoning the priest, I pulled the offenders under oath to do as they promised. So picture it, Jerusalem, 444 BC. So it's not as difficult as it may seem. You can turn on the news at almost any hour of any day and get a good idea. It was a city that was destroyed by war. Jerusalem, the capital of Judah, had laid in ruins for 150 years since it had been captured and destroyed by the Babylonians. Many of Jerusalem's people killed and the rest kidnapped and taken to Babylon. Subsequently, the Babylonians were defeated by the Persians. That's how it goes with empires. The Persians had some sympathy on the Judeans and allowed the remnant that was left to return to Jerusalem so that they could rebuild the walls. When they got there, they found the gates burned down and the walls destroyed. There was a Judean named Nehemiah who worked in the king of Persia's court. Hearing the reports that were coming from returning exiles, he requested and he was granted permission to take a recovery team back to Jerusalem to rebuild the walls of the city with the king's permission and blessing. There appears to be some economic stratification amongst these returning Judeans. Some of them seem to have done quite well in exile. They were excited about the new adventure. They went to REI and bought the latest and the greatest equipment and gear. Others were impoverished and didn't have enough to eat. Maybe they went because things were tough where they were, and they certainly couldn't be any worse in Jerusalem. Maybe they were thinking they could get on a wall-building crew and make a living for themselves. And as everyone got settled in and began to work, some problems arose. There was a famine in the land, and food was hard to come by. Persia, though more permissive than Babylon, still wanted their tax income. The poor in the community were having to mortgage their property just to have enough money to eat. The rich were getting richer, and the poor were getting poorer. Does that sound familiar? The rich were collecting exorbitant interest in rents, while the poor were losing their homes. Does that sound familiar? When the poor couldn't manage to pay back their loans, they faced having to sell their own children into slavery and even prostitution. Now, thank goodness most of us, or none of us, have ever had to experience making that decision. But if you have children of your own, or children that you care about, imagine for a moment having to make the decision of whether or not to sell your children in order to survive. Imagine the guilt and the shame of even having to consider that. If I was them, I wouldn't even want anyone to know that I was having to think about it. I would be going over and over it in my mind. What have I done? How in the world did I mess up this badly? Many of us here tonight and or those we love are experiencing or have experienced circumstances that have knocked us down. Maybe you escaped the violence, unrest, and extreme poverty in your home country. You made it to the United States, but now you live always looking over your shoulder in fear. Maybe you have a child that found themselves in the grips of substance use disorder, and despite your tireless efforts, they just can't seem to shake it. You were holding everything together so well for so long, and then a medical expense popped up, and you missed a month payment of rent, and now you're faced with living without a roof over your head. Or you experienced a mental health issue and weren't able to make it to work for a week. Maybe you ran into some problems in your youth, but you've been working on it and you've got it together, and you want to return to school to get an education, but you can't get any scholarships because of your arrest record. My parents live in North Carolina, and they're at the age and the condition of life where they need to be down here closer to us so that we can provide more care for them. But there isn't anywhere here in Palm Beach County where we can afford to move them even with our help. They're feeling some shame about being in those circumstances. I'm feeling some guilt because I can't help them more. How in the world did we mess this up so bad? But do you notice what happens in this ancient story? These Judeans started talking to one another. Yeah, I had to mortgage my vineyard just to have enough food to eat next week. I had to make the decision to sell my oldest son so the rest of my family could survive. You see, there's a few things that happen when we start to tell our stories. First, they lose some of their power over us. When I know that other people are having similar experiences to me, the guilt and the shame, they lose their grip. I realize that maybe it wasn't me that messed everything up. Maybe there are also systems of injustice and exploitation in place that contributed to the place where I now find myself. And as the guilt falls away, and as the shame falls away, I start to think a little bit more clearly. I have a little bit more confidence. I look around and I see the faces of my siblings who are supporting and accepting me. I feel empowered, and together we start to imagine, hey, maybe together we can use our power to do something about this. The Judeans, they gathered with Nehemiah. They said, hey, aren't we supposed to be all together in this? I left exploitation in Babylon just to be exploited here in Judea. No, thank you. They got angry. Nehemiah was enraged. They realized they needed to do something. They identified the problem, brought it to the officials that could make a difference in an assembly, and with divine power and with people power on their side, demanded and won the discontinuation of the charging of interest by their fellow workers on the wall. The officials heard their cry, our children are just as good as yours. Over the past few weeks, we have gathered together in houses, classrooms, and parish halls to tell our stories of the circumstances that we find or have found ourselves in. You have experienced the solidarity that comes from speaking your truth and being heard. This was my 12th annual round of house meetings with mostly the same folks, and I still heard a new story that surprised me and enraged me. If you're like me, you have been reminded of the serious problems facing our community. Mental health support, affordable housing, police and community relations, and you have been re-inspired to organize our power to move our issues forward this year. Yes? Yeah. With the issues clearly before us, there are only two things we need to do over the next 6 months. We will continue to research our issues to fine-tune the solutions we will propose to our officials at our Nehemiah Action on April 7th, 2025. Fantastic. You're going to get another chance. And we will begin now to strategize our invitations and ensure that each of us here tonight bring 3 or more people with us to the Nehemiah Action on April 7th, 2025. Now, I know what you're thinking. Of the 3 people that I invited last year, only 2 of them showed up, and 1 of them moved to the Villages last June. Well, you have the opportunity to make a new friend and invite them. You have 5.5 months. Most of us know people that have had shorter courtships before they got married. Our power is our people. People like you, people like me, who have known experiences that have tripped us up. People who know they are not alone in the setbacks they have faced. People who have come to understand that in working together, we have the power to make a significant difference in our community. Because we are peace. We are neighbors. We are peace. We are neighbors. Amen. This time, Reverend Dr. Sheila Harvey is going to come give us an update on where we are with affordable housing.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reverend Dr. Sheila Harvey, and I am the pastor of Union Congregational United Church of Christ, and so glad to see some of my friends here from the church tonight. I also serve on the Affordable Housing Steering Committee for Peace. In the fall of 2020, we began to hear stories about the lack of affordable housing, in particular, the lack of affordable rental housing. Since then, the problem has only grown. Over the past 4 years, we have heard stories like the following. A widowed father who is a Palm Beach County firefighter. He cannot afford an apartment and had to move back in with his mother. We can do better. Then we heard from a man who lived in the same apartment for 20 years. Overnight, his rent was raised by $1,000, and he could not afford to stay there. He tried to get into senior living, but the wait list is 3 to 4 years. He currently lives with his adult children. We can do better. A family living in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment with 2 other families. Each family gets a bedroom. There are over 12 people living in this one apartment. We can do better. One of our members is here tonight to share her story. I would like to invite Denzel Madison forward to share. Denzel.
Good evening. My name is Denzel Madison, and I am a member of Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church Peace Ministry. I am currently employed at the Lord's Place as an outreach worker. Every day, I work with people who are without housing in our community. But tonight, I would like to share my story. In 2022, I was living with my sister. She became a foster parent to her 2 grandchildren. She needed to provide a bedroom for them. I was sleeping in the room that the children needed, so I had to move out. I had money saved and began looking for an affordable apartment to rent. But in countless applications, spending money on application fees and administration fees, those fees add up. My application was denied so many times. I was told by the leasing agent that I did not make enough money to qualify for the apartment. They wanted a renter to have a gross salary of 3 times the rent or more. The HUD-approved apartments in our area have an area medium income, that's called an AMI, and I was told that I made too much. Unfortunately, I was homeless for 2 months. I was living in different hotels while diligently looking for a place to call home. Eventually, one of my friends discovered I was homeless, and she let me stay with her for a bit. But then she had to move to Wellington, and I was not able to move there because I didn't have a car at the time. No transportation to get to work. I became homeless again. Back to square one. At the end of the day, searching different travel websites when I was at work for cheap hotels, back to square one. Eventually, I ran out of money. I couldn't afford to stay even in the cheapest hotel. This resulted from me to let my employer know what I was going through. My employer was able to find me an affordable housing. Here I am, a full-time employee and not able to afford a one-bedroom apartment. I would like to share with you a story of one of my clients. This client was a school teacher for over 30 years. After she retired, she started receiving $1,900 a month in Social Security benefits and a pension of $500. She is homeless because she cannot afford to pay rent, utilities, food, and all other necessities on her fixed income. Too many of us are falling through the cracks. We need our local government officials to make it a priority for affordable housing so people who live and work here can continue to do so. We are peace.
We are neighbors.
Amen.
Thank you, Denzel, for sharing that story. In hearing that story, we all know we must do better. Over the last 4 years, the affordable rental housing crisis has continued to grow, especially for families making 60% of the area median income or below. And in terms of dollars and cents, that means $62,400 for a family of 4. In order to afford the average 2-bedroom apartment in Palm Beach County, one would need to make $36.17 an hour. This is out of reach for most families, as the median wage for a full-time, year-round worker is only $22.24 an hour. This is pushing more and more families to the brink. With parents having to work multiple jobs, seniors having to come out of retirement, grown children having to move back home, and forcing entire generations out of the state. All of this is contributing to a growing number of individuals and families experiencing homelessness in Palm Beach County. In January 2024, there were 2,126 individuals experiencing homelessness. This is a 13% increase from 2023. Moreover, there were almost 6,000 homeless students in the 2022-23 school year. These statistics can be directly linked to the affordable rental housing shortage. And I want to be clear, homelessness and housing insecurity can appear in many different forms. It can look like sleeping in your car, adult children moving back in with parents, sleeping in the park, or spending more than 30% of your income on housing. As the largest grassroots gathering in Palm Beach County dedicated to justice and equity, we at P.E.A.C.E are diligently working to get the county to build more affordable rental apartments. for the least of these among us. This is what will end homelessness in our community and allow families to thrive. Our county commissioners have the ability to address the affordable housing crisis. That's why we are excited to host tonight's candidate forum for those running for county commissioner of District 3, 5, and 7. Ahead of tonight's meeting, P.E.A.C.E invited all of the candidates. We also sent all candidates the questions that will be asked ahead of time. Commissioner Michael Barnett was also invited, but did not respond to our request. We would now like to welcome the candidates who are here with us tonight. Welcome to Joel Flores, Mayor Maria Sachs, John Fisher, and Leonard Saratori. We are glad to be working with you and address serious problems in our community. You may join me here on the stage if you haven't done so already. Commissioner Powell, yes, he's here. Please come forward. Bobby, we love you. P.E.A.C.E tonight, we're going to use a special housing cheer. It goes like this: no housing, no paradise. You'll hear me and others say that tonight. When we say no housing, we want you to respond, no paradise. All right, so we're going to try this a few times. No housing, no paradise. No housing, no paradise. No housing, no paradise. You guys have done this before. Good job. Tonight's event is not a debate. We ask our candidates to respect each other and focus on the questions at hand. This event is not an opportunity to endorse any candidate. We ask that P.E.A.C.E members completely withhold applause. Instead, feel free to show your reaction in your heart and your mind. Please do not clap. Also, we never boo at P.E.A.C.E events. Instead, we ask our members to respond with what? Silence. The floor team is here tonight in their yellow P.E.A.C.E t-shirts. Please look to them for guidance. Tonight, we have a timekeeper. Our timekeeper will hold up a sign when the candidate has reached the allotted time. Very good. We will now move to our second question. Oops, sorry, no, we're not. Okay, we are going here. Finally, candidates will be asked each question individually and will have 2 minutes to respond. We will do this with all 3 questions. We picked tonight's order by drawing districts out of a hat, fair and square. We will begin with District 3, followed by 7, and then 5. With that, Jim Pettit will ask the first question.
Good evening, Peace. Good evening. My name's Jim Pettit. I'm a parishioner at St. Patrick's in Palm Beach Gardens. Feel a little out of place because I'm not a pastor, but I'm going to do the best I can up here. I'm going to be asking everyone the same questions. You just heard that. And so I will be unable to ask or answer any follow-up questions or to have any give and take. So I'm saying that to Peace also, in case you're expecting that. It's not going to happen this evening. As Reverend Sheila mentioned, the affordable housing crisis is bad for a lot of people. People making $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. It is severe for the population that we're talking about tonight. with 60% average median income, which is $62,400 for a family of four. Now, a common misconception about who these people are is that they're not working. Well, it's simply not true. These are hardworking people with full-time jobs. And what are some of the occupations? Home health aides, wait staff, preschool teachers, bus drivers, nursing assistants, construction laborers, truck drivers. These are our friends. These are our neighbors. These are the people that make the economy hum in Palm Beach County. So if it's not a moral issue to get these people affordable housing, maybe it's at least an economic issue for Palm Beach County. These people can't afford to live where they work. They can't afford to live anywhere near where they work. The gap for these people making $62,400 a year, the gap for rental apartments is 45,000 units. And it's getting worse each year, not better. So our first question, we're going to ask Mr. Flores, I think was the, yes, Mr. Flores? So the first question, which will be the same for everyone, how would you address the affordable rental housing problem, specifically for families making below 60% of the area median income, which again is $62,400 for a family of four?
I got 2 minutes, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, first of all, my name is Joel Flores. I'm the former mayor of the city of Green Acres, and I'm the proud father of 3 wonderful children. And why is that relevant? Because I have a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 16-year-old who at some point in the next 4 to 8 years are going to be having to find their own place to live. And I'm worried. I'm really worried about their future, because at an entry-level position, I don't think she's going to be making $36 an hour. So to me, this is personal. And District 3 is what I consider the workforce in the county. It's really the home of the majority of the workforce in the county. And what I'm seeing is, first of all, let me tell you, when I got elected as the mayor in 2017, a 2-bedroom apartment was probably about $1,200. You could have found something maybe $1,100. Today, that same apartment, I'm not talking anything new, the same apartment is $2,500 if you can find that. Everything else is through the roof in Green Acres in the surrounding area. So we need to do better. 2 years ago, I advocated for what we call the housing bond in this county. And 2 years later, we still haven't seen any inventory. We haven't made any major traction in that housing bond, meaning we haven't invested the money that we asked the voters to tax themselves to be able to create this inventory that we're shortage. So we really need someone that can lead us forward, someone who has the experience, such as myself, someone who understands the community, understands the pain, understand that there are two different families living under the same roof. In that same 2-bedroom apartment, you have one family sharing one bedroom and the other family sharing the other bedroom. Yes, I've seen it. I have friends that live in the same situation because they can't afford to live here in Palm Beach County. And they're trying as hard as they possibly can to make ends meet. We have to do better. We have to do better by our residents. We shouldn't be pushing them out. We should be keeping them. These are the people that have the historical knowledge, and we really have to do better. My time's up. Thank you so much.
Next, we're going to call on Mr. Sarator. Sir, do you need the question again, or do you know what it is?
No, I know what the
Okay.
questions. I got it written. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name's Leonard Saratori. As he asked, the first question was, how can you get affordable housing? I used to be a realtor in New York, and I experienced all this, and that's why I live in the state of Florida now. The only way to get a mortgage cheaper, it's not at 6.5%. It should be somewhere around 2 or 3% where you can afford a house. When I came down here, I paid 4%, but the prices were low. We have to create more workforce houses. Some of the commissioners have done that already. You have a few projects going on. But from what I'm reading here, it's not enough to accommodate. You're talking about 100 units here and there. And even if you go to HUD, it says the same thing. HUD has given away 100 houses in this area. That's Habitat for Humanity. And you also have another one. You're building a 500-unit rental up here in Northwood, and only 117 of those are going to go to people. It's not enough to get everybody going. And when I was living in New York, I remember people commuting all the way from the Poconos to come into New York City and work. That's how bad it got up there. And actually, some of those companies after 2008, when we had that big real estate crisis, all crashed. And now they're very stringent on giving mortgages out to people. So that's another problem with finance, is to get a mortgage, like the lady said when she was up here speaking before we came up. So the solution really is a low mortgage rate. If you get a lower mortgage rate, when I came here, I got an Acorns mortgage. It was only 3%. I only made $28,000 with the airport. So they gave me a low interest rate. And these are the things we have to do. We have to get the financiers, people who provide mortgages, to get them to work with people so they can afford houses, even if they're $400,000. If you take a 1% mortgage on a $400,000 house, that's $100 for every 100,000. That's $400. I think everybody could afford that. But that's what we have to do for the future. I don't know how much builders would work with us or go along with that type of financing, but that's what we have to do. Thank you. My time is up.
Now, Senator Bobby Powell.
Thank you. And thank you all for inviting us here tonight. Of course, my name is Bobby Powell Jr., State Senator currently representing Senate District 24, which is everything from PGA Boulevard down to Hypoluxo, all of this. And of course, I was born and raised in Riviera Beach, Florida. Went to school, Palm Beach Gardens High School graduate, and I'm a native of this area. Bobby Powell, my parents, my mother was Clara Jean Powell, before that Clara Jean Grace, and my dad's Bobby Powell. With regard to this housing issue, there's several things that we can do. The first being that we've identified the issue as 45,000 units. One of the things that we can do is we need to track how many units that there are that we're at a deficit of. If we're at a deficit of 45,000 units, we have the housing bond. With the housing bond, we've already allocated $100 million of that bond to start constructing new units. Some of those units will be rental units. Some of those units will be up for sale. So what we'll do is, with the tracking of the housing bond, we're supposed to, over the next 20 years, create 200,000 new units. Now, every year, we have to have a tracking mechanism to see how many rental units are available. If we're at a deficit of 45,000 units, every year, track what the deficit is. Now, with more and more people coming to Florida, of course, sometimes we're probably still going to see an increase, but we've got to come up with alternatives, including accessory dwelling units in terms of new construction. 70% of the new houses that are built are single-family units. When we build these houses, we can create single-family units with accessory dwelling units attached. That will allow some of us who have kids or grandkids or parents who we may want to move into the house with us without being directly associated with us to have that opportunity to live within us. But we have to have a tracking mechanism every time we create these units. We got to be creative. I'm an urban planner. I'm AICP certified, graduated from Florida State University, and I practiced here as a planner for the last 11 years. We have to be innovative, we have to have strategies, and we have to have a plan. You know what the problems are. If you don't have a plan to resolve the problems, it will never be resolved. You cannot start digging into federal issues when you're talking about the county, and it won't be solved if you're not dealing directly with the county. So that's how we can deal directly with this issue. Thank you.
Now, Commissioner Maria Sachs is not going to be able to make it tonight. Okay. As of a little update there. All right, so thank you, gentlemen. And no housing. No paradise. Thank you. All right, we're now going to move on to our second question. Palm Beach County has rather robust programs for something called workforce housing. Those are families making above the $64,200 that we've been speaking about, and that's grand, that's wonderful. The housing crisis really requires many different solutions. Programs specifically focusing to increase the number of affordable housing units for people making less than that 60% area median income, whether it's from The state or the county or the municipalities are few and far between, and that's why we see the deficit that we have here. In part, this is because developers are required to participate in the county's workforce housing program, not in an affordable housing program. That's voluntary. The program states that if a developer builds above a certain number of units, they either have to include workforce housing in the project they're building, or they have to pay a fee. So this incentivizes the developers to build workforce housing. Again, great, but not for the population that is 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless. There is no requirement for that type of housing. That being said, our second question to the candidates tonight: are you in favor of creating an affordable rental housing program that developers are required to participate in or pay a fee, just like they have to do for workforce housing? So again, we'll begin with Mr. Flores.
That's pretty simple. The answer is yes. I think we have to take care of those that are on fixed income. I think that's a lot of what's happening here, is that these individuals that are receiving Social Security can't keep up with the rate of inflation. What we're seeing is a lot of people being pushed out because they can't continue paying the insurance cost and the condo fees that are being passed down to your average American here in Palm Beach County. So there has to be a mechanism for us to continue to assist these individuals that are under the medium income, and we have to do better. I mean, it's something that I keep talking about. We have to do better. It's because the county has had this program in place for a long time, and a lot of the times they're not even utilizing these funds. So we're assessing fees to these developers, but yet we take the money, yet we're not reinvesting it back into creating these units. We've seen this issue happening for the last 15 years, yet we haven't really taken much action. We went out and asked the voters to tax themselves to be able to create a workforce housing or to create a housing program. And yet it took 2 years for this program to be rolled out. As you heard Senator Powell mention that almost half of the funds have already been allocated. But yet, it almost took 2 years. In the county, it's taking anywhere from 18 to 24 months to get any permitting approved. So we're talking about these projects that just got approved. They're probably not going to come online until another 2 years from now. We have to do better for our residents. We can't sit around and wait 24 months to get these units approved to then have them go built. So we really have to take a look at ourselves. You guys talked earlier about government and the role that we're supposed to play, and this is the role that we're supposed to play, making sure that we prioritize our people, making sure that we have homes for them to live, and that we're actually doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Mr. Saratori.
Again, for this question, I have some questions myself. I would have to examine the program and see if there's a burden to the taxpayer. The more entitlements you increase to the taxpayers of Florida, the social programs will have to be funded by state income taxes. Somewhere's got to get the money from somewhere. Who would run the program? Am I the government running housing authority, which would lead to another expensive government bureaucracy? I just pulled up a couple articles when I was coming in here. They have this same type of deal in New York. Right now, the people in those units can't pay their rent. The taxpayers are on the hook for $185 million. And they go on, and most of the people that run that have been indicted. And we also have a girl that was working here in this county. She stole $89,000 from the people living in there. So my answer would be, we would have to see what it is, what the guidelines would be to do this, and then we would have to examine and see if it could be implemented without costing the taxpayers more money. And that would be my answer to that. Thank you.
Senator Powell, please.
Thank you. Of course, when it comes to creating a program within the county where we would allow for additional affordable rental units, I would be in favor of it. But I don't want to lose the idea that in order to create opportunities, we do need to make sure that we have opportunities to purchase homes. The Florida Housing Finance Corporation has the State Apartment Incentive Loan Program that's available financing for us to create and build apartment units. We also have this opportunity through the state. A couple of years ago, we passed a program called the Live Local Act, where additional funding has been created, where the state has usually swept the Sadowski Trust Funds, which are the housing monies, and now there's over $750 million being brought back into the state that will be used to develop housing. Some of that housing will be SHIP, which is State Housing Initiative Partnerships, and some is for apartment rental units. Now, the fee in lieu program, sometimes there's a fee in lieu paid when developers are allowed to pay a fee in lieu instead of creating those units. We need to make sure that the units are created here. One of the things that I can tell you recently came from a Dallas leadership trip. In Dallas, they have more units than they have here in terms of people who are able to rent them. We have to create additional units. We're at a 45,000 unit deficit. We have to have additional housing units. We have to have additional apartment units for rent. If you create the units, then of course the prices will go down. We have to deal with this at a county level, but also we can work with the state. As a state senator, I know who the next state senator from my district will be, as well as my colleagues who are still serving in the legislature. But I've also got relationships with people who are currently in Congress, and I'll use those relationships to make sure that we have the ability to build, have synergy within all three levels of government to create units and create programs that work for us here in Palm Beach County. Because if we don't have the units, more and more people will be homeless. You already heard what Denzel Madison said, but she's not the only one. I can tell you, when the insurance prices go up, people have continued to call my office crying because they cannot afford to pay their mortgage, but because the mortgage is attached to the insurance. Also, if they have a healthcare crisis, they've had to call us because guess what? You've got to make a decision. Do I pay for my medication and my surgeries and my issues with healthcare, or do I afford housing? So those are things that we have to work on at the local level. Thank you.
It's my understanding that Commissioner Maria Sachs did accept our invitation to come here. She just couldn't make it, so just wanted to make that clear. All right, so thank you to the candidates. We are at peace. We are neighbors. And I'd like to welcome Bishop Hightower to continue with the questioning.
Good evening. My name is Corey Olson. I'm the rector of St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Lake Worth Beach, and I'm here for the closing remarks of the forum. First of all, I just want to thank you all for coming. I really do appreciate it. It's hard for me to be quiet when they say be quiet, so I'm so glad I get to say thank you. No housing.
No paradise.
No housing.
No paradise.
You know, I have housing, but listening to these guys tonight talking about insurance going up and condominium fees, I've got my stomach's in knots again. How about y'all? Because there's a lot. Addressing affordable housing crisis for families making below $62,400 is one of the most pressing problems of our county commissioners need to address. And the job won't be easy, but it is necessary. And that's why it's so important that these candidates are here tonight, and it's important that we're here tonight, and it's important that we know that we are a community who needs to work together. It's not an oppositional relationship. We want to work together with our county commissioners to make this a wonderful place to live. We say that Palm Beach County is paradise, but no housing. No paradise. Our neighbors are crying out for an affordable housing, and it's up to us to listen and to take action. In the Gospel of Matthew, there's a wonderful story in Matthew 25 where Jesus is talking to some folks, or he tells a story about talking to some folks, and he says, you people come and stand up my right hand because everything's going to be good for you. And another group, he says, you go to sit on my left hand and it's not going to be good for you. And they say, why? What happened? How did we get to where we are? If you remember the story, no matter which side you're on, you say, how did we get here? And he says, when I was naked, you gave me clothing. When I was sick, you took care of me. When I was in prison, you visited me. And they say, we don't remember doing that. And he said, when you did it for the least of these, you did it for me. There are a lot of people in Palm Beach County who don't need our help. We know that. They're fine, and they're going to be fine. Some of us are fine and going to be fine no matter what happens. But the least of these need our help. They need us to work together with them and for them. They need us to remember them every time we cast a vote, be it in we're going to be voting here in 15 days? We have to be remembering those folks. And whoever becomes a county commissioner, y'all are going to be counting votes, casting votes, and we want you to always be remembering the least of these. And now, my friends, as we move forward with our agenda, let us remember our call to care for those in the margins and to continue to work toward that vision of justice together. And now the Housing Steering Committee will escort our candidates out. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. And as they leave, let us remember, no housing,
No paradise.
and we are peace.
We are neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Corey and Reverend Sheila and Jim, and the hard work that our Housing Committee put into creating this for us tonight. I neglected to introduce myself when I was up here before. I'm Jason Fairbanks, and I'm the pastor of Lake Worth United Church in Lake Worth Beach, Florida. And so we are going to give a briefer update on our police and community relations campaign. But to do that, I'm going to read one more scripture tonight, and that's Luke 18, 1 through 8. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, in a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, grant me justice against my adversary. For some time he refused. But finally he said to himself, even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice so that she won't eventually come and attack me. And the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones, who cry out for him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? So peace, like the persistent widow, we have persevered. For years, we've kept coming back to Sheriff Bradshaw. My college sophomore son was in elementary school when we started working with Sheriff Bradshaw. And we said, grant us justice, collect data, build trust. And like the judge, Sheriff Bradshaw mostly ignored us. He would not come to our Nehemiah action. He would not even meet with us. But did we give up? No. We kept coming back because justice is too important, and like the persistent widow, our efforts paid off. So following our sheriff candidate forum at this time last year, Sheriff Bradshaw met with Peace for the first time ever, right here, downstairs, at night, with one of our congregations. We filled the room, and we showed him that we are serious. And in April, we were rewarded. Sheriff Bradshaw came to the Nehemiah Action for the first time ever. And not only did he attend, but he committed to collect data, including race and ethnicity and reason for each traffic stop, for all traffic stops, and to contract with Dr. McDevitt, a professor who can analyze that data. This was a huge victory for us, and we know that with this data, the sheriff's office will be able to see where racial profiling is occurring and take action. That is all that we are asking for. These efforts are what will build trust between the community and law enforcement. We have been told that the sheriff's office has started taking this data. However, we want to see to the data with our own eyes. So we are working to schedule a meeting with Sheriff Bradshaw to review the initial data, and we will let everyone know when that meeting is scheduled. So like the persistent widow, we kept coming back to Sheriff Bradshaw. We did not back down. We yelled, "Grant us justice," until the sheriff finally agreed. And so we are prepared to continue this persistence until we have that data in our hands. We know that God will bring justice for us, those who cry out to God day and night. Amen? We shall persevere until everyone in our community is treated with the dignity and the respect that they deserve. We will do this because we are peace.
We are neighbors.
And now Reverend Kisner will come up and talk about our mental health work.
Thank you, Jason. Good evening. My name is Gerald Kistner, and I'm the pastor here at Tabernacle Baptist Church. In the fall of 2022, P.E.A.C.E unanimously voted to work on mental health and education and addiction in our community. Through our research, we learned that the state of Florida, now listen to this, ranks 47th in the nation for the availability and the accessibility of mental health services. This is particularly concerning when you consider that in Palm Beach County, 1 in 5 adults experienced mental health issues each year. The lack of access to mental health services in our community is not just an inconvenience. This is truly a matter of life and death. In fact, Palm Beach County, this is another startling statistic, has the second highest rate of suicide in Florida. Miami is the only county which has a higher rate, with just 8 more suicides. People are dying every day in this county in alarming rates because they can't get the help that they need. This should be very troubling to all of us. In 2022, there were over 12,000 individuals admitted to hospitals for emergency mental health care in Palm Beach County. Throughout our research, and you know we always research diligently, we learned that many of these individuals have particular difficulties during the transition stage of treatment. There are numerous stories that we heard of individuals after they were discharged from the hospital. There was no care plan or no follow-up, leaving them and their families in a state of confusion and actually being scared. In our search for a solution to the gap in mental health services, we discovered Florida Assertive Community Treatment. FACT is the acronym. FACT provides programs that offer numerous benefits and are recognized as the best practice and priority by the state of Florida. The Department of Children and Families and Palm Beach County's mental health entity, Southeast Florida Behavioral Health Network, that's a mouthful. Despite this recognition, get this, Palm Beach County only has 1.2 FACT teams serving just 126 individuals. In contrast, the Treasure Coast, which has fewer than 800,000 fewer residents than us, they operate 2 full-time FACT teams, and they even have a waiting list. This comparison highlights the gap in service availability, making it clear that for us in this county, improvements are needed. With an estimated 46,000 individuals in Palm Beach County, let me say that again, 46,000 individuals here in our county needing mental health services. 1.2 FACT teams just is not enough. When P.E.A.C.E addressed this crisis with SEFBNH, CNO, that's the big organization I talked about. The CEO was Ann Berner. At our action last year, she not only dismissed the urgent need for care, but she actually belittled our efforts. And some of you were there, you heard what she did. This denial and lack of empathy is a disservice to those who are in need. But listen, brothers and sisters, we must not let this stop us. As Jason talked about the persistent widow, we must take a stand. I want to remind you someone else who stood up against a giant. And many of you know that's our friend David. You all know David, right? In 1 Samuel chapter 17, we're introduced to this young shepherd who was shocked to find that anyone would mock the army of the living God. David was angry that Goliath was challenging God's army with arrogance and blind confidence. When he stepped up to fight the giant, others told him he couldn't succeed. He was too young. He didn't know enough about battle. However, David understood something that they didn't. His strength came not from physical abilities, but from his faith in God. Currently, P.E.A.C.E, we are facing our own giant, the broken mental health system. But we know something that even Ann Berner, the CEO, doesn't know. God is on our side. Somebody say amen. Amen. But we must be like David and be willing to take action like that persistent widow and others who are afraid to do so. I would now like to invite Virginia to share her personal experience with this giant that we're all fighting. Virginia, would you come forward, please?
I'm actually not Virginia. My name is Ruth Hook, and I attend St. Joseph's Episcopal Church, and I'm part of the Mental Health Steering Committee. Virginia couldn't be here tonight, and she asked me to read her testimony. She's home with 2 sick children and a husband who's traveling. So this is her story. 6 months ago, my little sister had her first child, a perfect little girl named Lily. My sister and her family lived in Sweden, but are planning on moving back to the United States in 2 months to be closer to her family. My sister had suffered from depression and anxiety, mostly stemming from her military service for the past 4 years. After she had her daughter, she began to enter a spiral downward of postpartum depression. She was so sick that her husband had to quit his full-time job and take care of her and the baby. Stuck in the United States, my family felt completely powerless and just prayed that she could find the help that she needed. Thankfully, she connected with a wonderful therapist and, with the therapist, had found the right medication and other resources. She is doing much better now. Of course, this is happening in Sweden, not here. Now, she is preparing to move back to the United States. It has always been our dream to raise our children together. Her baby girl is 9 months younger than my baby. Theo always shouts, "Lily," whenever he sees her picture. My sister was also counting on my help for her child care. However, as they prepared to move to Florida, they quickly realized that she would not be able to receive mental health care here in Palm Beach County. She has insurance, she and her husband both work, and yet she could not find a therapist who accepts her insurance and had openings for new patients. Mental health care is a non-negotiable thing for her and her family. She is alive because of that care. When deciding on a place to live, society often focuses on housing and job opportunities, but overlooks the importance of mental health care. This ongoing neglect is depriving my children of a childhood spent with their cousins and denying me, my sister, and my brother-in-law the assistance they need with childcare, and robbing my family of the support system and community we rightly deserve. My little sister, her husband, and my perfect little niece aren't moving here. They can't. Thankfully, my sister found a therapist in DC and is moving there. She had to choose between family and accessing mental health care, a choice no one should have to make.
Thank you for sharing Virginia's story, Ruth. I really appreciate that. My name is Reverend Latifah Griffin, and I am the pastor at First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Palm Beaches in North Palm Beach. For those of you that don't know, and most of you don't know me, before I moved here to Florida in the fall of 2023, I lived in Philadelphia, born and raised in Philadelphia. And in Philadelphia, in addition to being a minister, I worked as a mental health therapist. And I saw many people hurting. Families with stories exactly like Virginia's that were crying out for help. So when I got the call to become the minister at First UU, I was ecstatic to move to sunny Florida, okay? I thought I was moving to paradise. But unbeknownst to me, Palm Beach County would have many of the same problems and issues that I saw in Philadelphia. So many of my congregants are hurting, and I cannot stand by. Galatians 5:13 tells us, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free. But do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love." And when we turn our backs on our neighbors who are hurting, we are not serving one another humbly in love. And there are many ways to serve humbly in love. And through peace, one way to ensure that I am serving my community humbly in love is by my willingness to take action. Like David, I was angry with Ann Berner's arrogance and dismissal at last year's action. She was, and she still is, denying our neighbors the care that they deserve. But like David, P.E.A.C.E did not stand by and wait for others to take action. We stepped up. And on May 15th, P.E.A.C.E held a press conference calling out the gaps in care and demanding fact teams for all of Palm Beach County. And yet, Ann Berner did not budge. Did we stop fighting? No, that's right. We continue to take action to address the crises in our community, and we scheduled a meeting with Southeastern Florida Behavioral Health Network's boss, the Department of Children and Families, which is now called DCF. Not only were we able to take the first steps in defeating our giant, the dysfunctional mental health system, but we were able to secure a commitment that they will help us hold Ann Berner and Seth Ben accountable. Amen. Reverend Kisner reminds us of David's willingness to take action, but the story does not stop there. Armed with God's courage and his slingshot, David did not hesitate to take down the Goliath, and he did just that. With blind faith in one stone, David triumphed over the giant that everyone said he could not defeat. So often, folks, we hear that's just how things are. But I am personally tired of sticking to the status quo, and I will not stand by and let my brothers and sisters continue to suffer. So, friends, are you ready to join me in taking a stand?
Yeah.
All right. Peace will not let our giant win. We will fight for fact teams and for everyone in need in Palm Beach County. And together, we can emulate the courage of David and take the slingshot to the broken mental health system and win. because with God, all things are possible. Amen. Now I would like to invite Stacy Harder to share with us how we can take action. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Latifa. How do I follow that? That was amazing. Good evening. My name is Stacy Harder, and I serve on the Mental Health Steering Committee. We just heard Reverend Latifa's powerful message on the urgent need to address the mental health crisis in Palm Beach County. I am dedicated to participating in research because I'm passionate about everyone getting access to the mental health care they deserve. In 2022, I began attending Lake Worth United Church of Christ and learned about their involvement with a social justice organization called P.E.A.C.E. I had not shared my personal history with the members of the church yet, but at a P.E.A.C.E. house meeting, I opened up about my lived experience with chronic depression and addiction. As I talked about the stigma surrounding mental illness and the struggle to navigate Palm Beach County's inadequate mental health care system, I saw some of my fellow church members nodding in agreement. Whether through our own personal experience or that of a friend or family member, this is an issue that has touched us all. I was also able to share about a positive experience that I had outside of Palm Beach County. I stand here today because of a facility that connected me back to an outpatient program in my own county that provided needed counseling, medication monitoring, and required me to regularly attend 12-step meetings. I'm forever grateful for that positive experience and how it's impacted my sobriety today. However, the support and guidance I received should be the norm rather than the exception. And it should have been available for me and all other residents of Palm Beach County who live with addiction and mental illness. I knew that I wanted to take action, and P.E.A.C.E. provided me with a way to do just that. 2 years ago, after that house meeting, I was sitting at my first Community Problems Assembly, just like many of you are tonight. I learned more about P.E.A.C.E. and about the power that we have when we join together with a common goal. I took a leap and joined the Mental Health Research Committee. Over the past 12 years of sobriety, I've witnessed the power of individuals, but I was excited about the opportunity to work with this large group of neighbors to create systemic change. Tonight, I am here to invite you to join me in creating that change. This process is not just about making a difference, it's about empowering yourself. It's an opportunity to be directly involved in a research committee that shapes the direction and future of Palm Beach County. You do not want to miss the opportunity to see a politician's eyes light up when they see so many people gathered together, in person or on Zoom, for a common cause. Even if you feel that you have nothing to offer, let me assure that you do. Your presence has the power to change attitudes and become a catalyst for reform in your community. Each research committee meets once a month between now and the Nehemiah Action in the spring. This year, both housing and mental health research committees will meet with officials like county commissioners or the Department of Children and Families to move forward with our campaigns. Our Police and Community Relations Committee will monitor whether the Sheriff's Department is collecting the data that it says it is. If you are interested in joining any of these committees, please turn to the last page of your agendas. I'll let you do that. You have two options to fill out the form. You can fill it out by hand, or you can use the QR code provided. Make sure to put your contact information so we can keep you up to date on the upcoming committee meetings. Staff members are walking around now to collect this form, and you can also turn them in at the door when you leave. Everyone is invited to be involved in the research process, and you have an opportunity coming up. All our issue committees will gather for the first research committee meeting of the year on Monday, November 18th at 7 p.m., place to be announced. That evening, we'll break into our 3 committees and make a plan for the year ahead. I'm excited to start the research process this year, and I hope you'll join me. And now I will turn it over to Deacon Jojo.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Deacon Jojo, and I am a parishioner at St. Anne's Catholic Church. Now, it has been wonderful to be with you all tonight as we prepare for another year of doing justice. Because we are peace.
We are neighbors.
So as we prepare to close, I would like to read a Franciscan blessing. Bow your heads, please. May God bless us with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that we may live deep within our hearts. May God bless us with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that we may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless us with tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, injustice, starvation, and war, so that we may reach out our hands to comfort them and to turn their pain into joy. And may God bless us with enough foolishness to believe we can make a difference in the world, so that we can do what others claim cannot be done. So now join me as we close our meeting with a closing prayer on page 2. All together, we are called to listen to the commands to love and do justice. Our gathering this day reminds us of our responsibility to work with one another to make our world into a more hopeful place of peace. We are inspired and guided to hear the cry of the poor and oppressed and to respond. We know that alone we are limited in what we can do, but together we are powerful. Our strength comes from our unity. Grant us continued strength and sustenance. We ask all of these things from you, whose Spirit makes us one. Amen. So with that, our 2024 Community Problems Assembly has come to a close. There will be an evaluation downstairs for all board members and presenters at 8:30 p.m. So good night. We will see you at the research kickoff on November 18. Thank you. Good.